I'd like to welcome this afternoon here on the East Coast, late morning on the West Coast, my guest this morning to the JPP, the Jewish Philanthropy podcast, Adam Milstein. Adam has had a distinguished professional career as the managing partner of Hager Pacific Properties, and in particular, he's the co-founder of the Adam and Gila Milstein Family Foundation, which provides charitable and philanthropic services to a wide range of organizations to strengthen the Jewish people, the state of Israel, and the United States-Israel relationship. Adam, it's a pleasure to have you here with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi. It's a pleasure being with you. Looking forward to speaking to you today.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I always ask my guests, opening question always is, in your own words, please share with our audience, who is Adam Milstein?
Great. Well, I'm an active philanthropist and a businessman. I'm also a father and a grandfather, but mostly I think I'm a proud Jew. I'm an Israeli American, and I'm transformed into being a philanthropist that not just invest in philanthropic venture, but actually create the venture, make sure they're successful, pull my sleeves, do the hard work, and create synergy, success, and impact.
Okay, that's terrific. My research has revealed that you grew up in Israel. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your upbringing, your background, and the influence that it had on who you became.
I was born in Israel in the city of Haifa. Both my parents were immigrants from America, believe it or not.
Really?
My father came to Israel in 1947 as an illegal immigrant. He had came to Israel on a boat chartered by the Haganah. It's called Mapilim boat. His boat name was Apoltzim, landed in Israel, and then in 1948, he participated in the Independent War as a sailor, and so also in 1956. My mother was born in Mexico. She grew up in America and came to Israel in 1948, when many young Jews, I think after Israel became independent, I believe many young Jews came and made Aliyah to Israel. They met in Haifa and got married. I was born in 52. My father was a Zionist, he was a fighter, and he was also a businessman, a developer. So I grew up with all those elements. I think the most momentous event of my life in Israel was at the age of 19, I was recruited to the Israeli army, like so many other Israelis, and I had the privilege to participate in the 1973 Yom Kippur War. And being in the war, I was actually in the Sinai, part of the Ariel Sharon brigades. So I was in a life and death situation almost every day. I crossed the Suez Canal with Ariel Sharon under tremendous fire from every place. And for the 3 weeks that the 73 war lasted, I really was lucky to come out alive, but it made my trust in God even stronger. I believed, and I still believe, that there is some kind of a guardian angel that guards me. And it really allows me to be more on the offensive, not to be concerned about personal attacks, and try to make impact, notwithstanding the hatred that anyone that make a point and make a stance is facing. Also, I think what the war taught me is that we need to think out of the box. We need to take the war to the turf of the enemy, and that we should never be too confident, and always be prepared for the worst, and always don't wait to be attacked, but attack our enemies first. Don't repeat the mistakes that we have done during the years. If we repeat them, we will be basically doomed to have the same consequences.
So let's just broaden that for a moment. So presumably you're talking not only in Israel, but in the diaspora as well.
Clearly, I think first and utmost in our recent memory, talk about the Holocaust. I think it was pretty clear in the early 1930s when Hitler took the government in Germany, and he was starting to enforce all kinds of rules against Jews. It was pretty clear what was coming. But most Jews believe that this is temporarily. He's not going to succeed as a leader. It's going to go away. It's going to be okay. They did nothing to object him or even to move out of Germany. Very few people moved out of Germany. And even when the Holocaust was taking place, most people didn't believe it was taking place. And I think if we repeat the same mistake that the Jews in Europe did in the 1930s, we are doomed to have, I can't say the same consequences, but their consequences.
What are there trends that you're seeing circa United States 2019, 2021? Are you seeing threats? Are you seeing things that frighten you?
Absolutely. I think anti-Semitism has been on the growing for the last at least 10, 15 years. It started in the form of a BDS, but everybody knows that BDS today is nothing but anti-Semitism. It's starting as an incident once a week, once a month, once a year, and now we have several incidents every day. Many of them are violent. Now, as America is becoming more and more radical community where, difference of opinion is not accepted, where everybody feels that if he is a victim, he should take things to his own end. And we, the Jews, are always the scapegoat. We are always the community that everybody hates. Look, white supremacists hate us. Radical Muslims hate us. Radical left hate us. There is something that unites all Americans is our hatred to the Jews. And if we do not understand the writing on the wall, we're going to be subject to severe, violent anti-Semitism in the near future.
That's daunting, what you just mentioned. And maybe we'll talk a little bit later when we get into your philanthropy about, what we can do about it, practically. But before we get there, let's step back a little bit. So you mentioned your father was a developer. I'm guessing maybe that had some impact in your interest in eventually pursuing a career in real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually worked with him after being released from the army in 1974. I got married to my wife, Gila.
I was 2 years old at the time. Okay. But okay.
Okay, well, I was 22 and a half in 1974, was born in 1952. And I went into the Technion to do my bachelor education. At the same time, I also worked with my father in development and construction. So I got pretty acquainted with all aspects of real estate development, legal, accounting, actual construction. And when I came here in 1981, I came on a student visa. I went to USC and done a master in business administration. As I was graduating and I was exploring what's the next thing I could do, I could see that American corporate did not really appreciate my knowledge, my experience, my street smart. For them, I was a foreign student, just finished school. And it was natural for me to do something that I could do so good on my own. So usually people that go and have a graduate degree will never work as independent on their own, on commission. But I decided to take the risk. I knew my capabilities, I knew my talent. So I basically started from scratch in real estate, the area that I was so familiar with, and I made it a success.
Fascinating. Were you always planning on staying in America, or were you?
No, the story is I told my wife, and I really believe that it's going to be a 2-year venture. We'll come here, go to higher education, come back. We actually left behind us our home in Israel with all the furniture locked, completely planning to come back. We came here with 2 young girls. And when I finished SC, I said, you know what, let me maybe stay a little bit just to get my tuition back, my investment, so I can come back at least balanced compared to the money that I brought with me and I had to waste on living in education. And as I started doing business in real estate and success was present, it was harder and harder to actually plan on going back to Israel. Today, I have 3 grandkids. They're living here. 2 of my daughters living in America, and one actually, the one that was born here in 1990, made Aliyah to Israel. She lives in Tel Aviv.
Uh-huh.
But I think it's much harder for me today to leave because I have so much invested, so much life invested here in the United States. However, in light of anti-Semitism and other radical changes in America, this is no longer a remote possibility.
Mm-hmm. How did you end up on the West Coast per se? Was that just a fluke, or like when you came as a student visa, why did you end up on the West Coast?
Good question. I was actually accepted to several schools on a even scholarship like Wharton or Western. But being from Israel, I couldn't see myself living in a cold, freezing climate. And I'm going to go to where it's like Israel. California was the closest thing. So I landed here and just needed to select whether I'm going to go to SC or UCLA. I was accepted to both. And I decided to go to SC because they had a program for people who also wanted to work. And I finished SC 2 years, in 2 years, part-time.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Wow. Talk a little bit about what inspires you, who inspires you, personalities that inspire you, experiences that have inspired you. What gets you out of bed in the morning? What really motivates you?
I think that we're here on Earth for a limited amount of time, 70 years, 80 years, 90 years, and we're here to make something good out of our life. We need to make an impact. So when I see people that made an impact, made a difference, created legacy, something that lived well beyond their deaths, this is what inspires me. Also, people that have the courage to stand and fight back encourage me and inspire me. If we look at people in the Israel history, such as David Ben-Gurion and Zev Jabotinsky and Menachem Begin and Golda Meir, they were proud Jews and had the courage to stand and fight back against popular views or whatever you. And that's what makes success. If you're passive, if you're not willing to take any risk, you won't be accomplishing a lot in your life. So I want to accomplish a lot. I want to make a difference, and I want to leave a legacy behind me.
Within that framework, so today, the day we're conducting this interview, is a sad day. Shelley Edelson, one of the great Jewish philanthropists in the world, passed away today at the age of 87. Certainly a life and a legacy filled with accomplishment. I know you had some interactions with him, personal encounters with him. Maybe you worked together on projects. Could you share a little bit about Shelley Edelson?
Absolutely. It's a sad day for all Jews, for the people of Israel, and for the state of Israel. Sheldon Edelson, Shelley Edelson, was really the biggest Jewish philanthropist of our era. There are other philanthropies, but there was nobody Jewish that has given so much money, so much energy, and so much heart to support the state of Israel and Jewish causes. I met him through Birthright. I became the donor of Birthright perhaps 14 years ago, and through my support of Birthright, I come to know him because he was the major benefactor of Birthright, and I could see how big he was, how big his vision was. Nothing was too small for Sheldon, and anything he wanted to do was maybe 1,000 times more than anybody else. I had the privilege of actually doing some project with him, including the expansion of the Israeli American Council from a local organization in Los Angeles to a national organization. And Sheldon always told me, listen, Adam, there is the normal way to do things, and there's the Sheldon way. I don't want you to take the IAC and expand it to one other state in a year. I want you to expand it to 10 other states in 1 year. So everything was so much bigger with Sheldon, such a big philanthropic, big heart. And being in this business of philanthropy, I speak to philanthropists almost every day, and I try to bring partners to share with me the project that I do and to contribute financially to the things that the organization that I support, project that I support. But to see a small amount of money, 5,000, 10,000, is not easy. But when it comes to Sheldon, to get from him $10 million to our project is a no-brainer. It's just, there's nothing like him. There was nothing like him in this world. No bigger philanthropist that I've ever met in this world than Sheldon Edelson. So it's a big loss for all of us to see such a visionary, such a huge philanthropist leaving us. And he's not alone. I think there are many big philanthropists that have passed in the last 10 and 20 years. And unfortunately, not all of their families and their kids are following in the footsteps of the visionary fathers of the family. And I sure hope, and I believe in this case, Miri and her kids are going to continue this history and I think legacy of philanthropy that Sheldon actually initiated.
I love what you said. I think that's great. He would call it the Sheldon way. I think that's a great expression. I really like that. I'm gonna take that with us. That's great. Think big, do big things. Don't just don't be small. Don't be small.
No, he just was all the heart. And I've been with him in very intimate situation, and it was amazing how big of heart he had. For example, if he had a friend that broke a leg, on the Swiss mountain, and he would send a jumbo jet to take this friend and bring it to the United States for medical treatment. He would do things that out of the world that nobody would ever think about doing. It's
Right.
such a big heart. He was such a good friend, and it was a pleasure knowing him and being with him.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, Jonathan Pollard recently flew to Israel on his plane, possibly. I think that is accurate.
That's very possible. I'm not sure, but it's very possible.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. We'll have to talk a little bit about challenges and successes. And I always ask my guests to be a little bit vulnerable if they're willing to, and share. It could be personal, it could be professional, kind of a great challenge that you've experienced in your life, and also a great success or a great opportunity.
I take everything so seriously. I commit to everything that I'm doing. So I don't see anything as a challenge. I like the challenge. I like to be ambitious. And in the past, I've done things that are not really normal because I was willing to take the risk. I was willing to take the challenge. I was willing to commit myself 100%. So I can't say this was the biggest challenge of my life. Every day is a challenge because every day I wake up and I say to myself, all right, how do I make an impact? How do I invest my time and money in a way that will make a difference? And how do I really make just of the fact that I'm here on air? So to say that it's a big challenge, it's not, but this is a way of living. And many things that I've done have been very successful, in a normal way of looking at it. For example, talking about the family, I've been married since 1974, almost 47 years to the same woman, right?
That's a big accomplishment today.
The big accomplishment. It means that I have learned how to learn from my mistake and improve on my mistake. Life with anyone, life is a compromise, and you need to be thinking about the other side, what's the other side is looking for. It's a win-win. If you want to be successful and happy in life, you need to have an happy wife. So, but it's not
they say happy wife, happy life. Exactly.
But it's not just in my family. I have a beautiful partnership with a modern Orthodox partner. We met in 1983, and his name is David Hager. He's also a big philanthropist, and we are good friends and good partners. Some, almost 38 years after. And I think the magic of our partnership is that we're not greedy. Each one of us wants the other to succeed. Each one of us doesn't say, why am I getting the same as he and he did less? Each one of us is committing 100% to this partnership, to this friendship, and we enjoy the fact that together we're doing so much better. So I think I raised, I have established a long lasting partnership that is really blessed by God. I think I'm very blessed to feel that I am a messenger of God, God have made me an affluent person, somebody that not only have money, but also time and vision and connection to do good things for the community. And God have entrusted me to take this, the money, the wisdom, the activity, and spread it to more people, to more projects. So I think I'm very blessed by God, by really helping me with everything that I'm doing. So I think altogether, many of my projects have been very successful. I can mention the Israeli American Council, which I was one of the founding fathers back in 2006, and it became a huge organization, the fastest growing Jewish organization in the country. We took it from local to a national organization, reaching hundreds of thousands of people. Some of the programs that we did in the IAC that I initiated, like Sifriyat Pijama America, I would like to mention Sifriyat Pijama America was actually providing free books to kids of Israeli American in Hebrew about Jewish values that taught the kids of Israeli American the language, the values, and connected them to the bigger Israeli American community in the United States. Together with Gila, we created the Milstein Family Foundation that is really a unique because our principles are, I think, very effective. What we are doing, we're active philanthropists. We are not just giving money to the foundation, but we make sure that everything that we do, we pull our sleeve, we get involved, we create the program, the connection, the success. So this is action philanthropy, not just normal philanthropy.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that our programs are not just touching one community, one age, but really trying to benefit the whole community from young age to old age, from right of center to left of center. And the fact that we have empowered so many organizations to work together to create synergy and force multiplication. We have funded so many organizations, and we enjoy to see them working together and creating a huge impact.
Amazing.
So,
does your foundation have a staff, or basically you and your wife run the foundation?
We do have a small staff, and I invest most of my time in philanthropy. I used to be a business person that spent most of my time on business, another deal and another deal, another investment. But today, I think 80% of my time is being invested in philanthropy. I still, because of the nature of the business I'm in, real estate, I still need to take care of business, but I delegate and rely on other people, and I transform most of my energy and time into the philanthropy that I believe in.
What are some of your hobbies? What are some of the things you do for fun?
I used to play basketball, but my knees are no longer supported. So today I exercise probably 4 or 5 times a week. I'll keep me in shape. I also, mentioning exercise, also exercise my brain, because there's no point to have a bad brain on good body or a good brain on bad body. So both of them need to be trained. So I work on training my mind, doing all kind of mind exercise to keep me sharp. I do yoga. I eat well. So there is definitely a conscience to healthy living, to make sure that I can take the good thing that I believe I'm doing today to the distance.
What kind of mind exercises do you do, just out of curiosity?
Well, mathematical exercise. That means I take numbers and I multiply or I divide, and it started by single digits, but now sometimes it's 3 digits, times 2 digits, and you need to make a lot of combinations. So it's kind of, it's not only good for different centers of the brain, but also the communication between the centers. I do memory games, I do spell words backwards, or anything that really induce the brain to work harder and to regenerate, and also work on the different connection between different brain centers.
That's very impressive, like intellectual acuity to ensure that it's being exercised. Beautiful. Very nice. I like that.
I noticed that it actually helped my memory. I can suddenly remember I meet somebody and I remember that we met him 30 years ago and we spoke about this and that, and they just don't know who I am and how come I remember all that. But I think I found more memory stored in my brain by all those exercises.
Really fascinating. That's great advice. Cool. Talk a little bit about COVID-19. Obviously, everybody has experienced the pandemic in different ways. I'm curious, kind of, how do you see maybe life differently after having gone through what we've been through? Is this something you could have anticipated happening ever? How did you deal with the challenges that we still continue to go through? I've been reading about on the West Coast in particular. It sounds like in the Los Angeles area that things are particularly intense even now. I'd love to hear your perspective on events.
Well, I think nobody expected COVID-19 to hit us as hard as it did. And the impact of COVID-19 have changed America and changed the world. It's really going to change many of the things that we're going to do in the future, including how we're going to work and how we're going to buy and how we're going to communicate with other people. But like any other disease, there is a vaccine, and this is the first time in the history of the world that a vaccine was developed when the disease actually was identified. So I'm not as concerned about the disease itself because we will be vaccinated all soon, and we'll go back to what we think is normal. It's not going to be as normal as it used to be, but it changed the world. I think it changed America. It influenced the elections. It's influenced the what's happening in our society right now. It's influenced the radicalization of the American people. And it will have huge impact on the future of the world. America clearly is not going to be the leader of the world going from here. It's going to be China. And I think the world, all the free countries, all the Western civilization are going to have a huge negative impact, including, I believe, the state of Israel, that's not going to be exempt from being a modern democratic society in a world that is becoming more and more censored, and freedom of speech is curtailed, and freedom of the people is curtailed. So I think altogether, our life are going to change forever. I hope that America will be able to come together and somehow fight the changes that have taken place in the last year and still taking place even today. But as somebody who only lived here 40 years and seeing the huge divide between the different communities in America, I really have my doubts if this is even possible anymore.
Mm-hmm. It's a little bit ironic in the sense that, as President Trump often would say, the China virus, the virus on the one hand came from China, and on the other hand, somehow that unleashing of the virus now enables China to kind of catapult itself forward as the leader of the free world in some ironic, strange way.
It's very much of a concern because China, like, there's no other country in the world that want to take over the world. The Indians, we have 1 billion Indians, but they want to live in peace. But the Chinese in the beginning of the century said, this is our century. We're going to be the leaders of the world. We're going to rule the world. We're better than anybody else. And they have consistently done things to implement it, including this virus. And, we will know later on, was it man-made or wasn't man-made? Did they, intentionally have exported all over the world by killing it in China? We will know more as time proceeds. But there is no question that it served the interest of China very, very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's rather frightening. Any just from a personal level, have you done things differently? And you sound like a very driven person and a very focused person. Even so, have you changed some of the way you approach things in your personal life based on events of the last year?
During the COVID, I continued to live normal life. I came to the office every day, obviously maintaining social distancing, washing my hands, but I was not affected by the disease at all. Nobody close to me was affected by the disease. So for sure, I don't believe in locking everything down and taking away all our freedom of movement and taking care of business. I think it will make things harder for even people like me to do an impact in the future, because America is such a divisive country right now. My freedom of speech is being curtailed. If you know, on Friday, Twitter started closing some accounts they claim are QAnon or white supremacists. Clearly, those are not the people I interact with. But because I am a conservative, and moreover, I'm a Jewish conservative, suddenly I lost 25,000 followers on Twitter, which is 15% of my overall followers. So I know for sure that I'm being censored and I'm being punished for being a supporter in the past of the president and being one of conservative views. So I'm very concerned about what's going to happen to every American here with the AIPAC and radical left controlling everything that we do. It will make, our ability to really make an impact and make America stronger and better even more difficult. But this is what I do, and I will encounter those challenges and come up with the best solutions I can.
Did you, just for example, did you confront Twitter about it? Did you reach out to them? Did you?
The Twitter is not a place that you can actually make a phone call or send an email. They don't respond. But I did post on Twitter that, basically I'm subject to censorship, and that clearly it's an intentional attack, not just on me. I mean, all conservatives lost huge amount of their followers. The president doesn't have an account anymore, and so many of his advisors don't have accounts anymore, and other conservatives have just been curtailed, censorship, lost followers. Not everybody can see our messages, and we need to reevaluate. If social media is no longer an equal place for everyone to express opinions and exchange ideas, perhaps social media is not the thing of the future.
I just found it astounding, let's say anytime anybody would mention anything over the last 2 months vis-a-vis, and it's perfectly legal to challenge the election and to explore through the courts and things like that were done by the Republican Party. But I found it jarring. Every time I'd see a post, it would always have like an appendage from Twitter or from Facebook. This is a challenge. Like, it's like, thank you. Like, we're grown-ups. Let us read the information, decide how we want to how we want to inculcate the information. I don't need you telling me that this is a disputed. It's bizarre. It is a bizarre. I'm talking about something much less than you're talking about, but just like kind of this basic. Yeah, it's frightening. It's definitely frightening. There's a lot of aspects of life today that are frightening. Yes.
They were claiming that they are a free platform that you can express your opinion, but instead they become the biggest censors of the world. They become a publisher. They decide what they want to publish, what they don't want to publish, who they want to publish, and who should see what they publish. So I think that many Democrats are waking up to understand that right now it is the Republicans that are being targeted, but very soon they're going to be targeted as well. Because when you give so much power, so much monopoly to big organization, at some point, everybody is going to be the target. Right now, they're targeting the Republican and conservative, but very soon they're going to target anyone that says anything they don't like. It's the same thing. If you remember, during the Holocaust, there was a story about a Spanish poet who wrote a poem. I don't know if he actually did it or not, but the poet has been exchanged and shared by many people. And the poet says, in the beginning, they came from the socialists. The Nazi regime came for the socialists, and they arrested them. But I didn't do anything because I wasn't a socialist. And then they came for the intellectuals, and I didn't do anything because I wasn't an intellectual. And then they came for the Jews, and I didn't do anything because I wasn't a Jew. And then they came for this and that, and I did nothing. And when they came for me, there was nobody to stand for me. That's what people must realize, that at the end of the day, each one of us is going to be a target. The only question is when, in the beginning, in the middle, or the end. Those big monopolies, they are so drunk of power, they will not give it away, and they will accomplish more and more power, monopoly, and censorship.
Yeah, I hear that. Let's talk. We've fortunately have been able to talk a little bit about philanthropy throughout our discussion, but I'd love to kind of pose the following question, and that is, how does your wife, how do you basically go about deciding how to allocate limited resources? Everybody, no matter how successful financially a person is, there's still obviously finite resources. There are an infinite amount of amazing causes, I'm sure, that come to your door, that come to many people's doors. How do you and your wife prioritize? How do you triage? How do you basically decide, kind of, this is somewhere where I'm going to put my money, this is somewhere I'm going to put my time? As you explained, you're an activist, philanthropist, you go all in. But how do you go about the process of kind of weeding out kind of the, I don't want to say the losers from the winners. They're all, everything has a need, but how do you kind of figure where you're gonna kind of invest, and where do you kind of say, you know what, this is an important thing, but this is not for me, this is for somebody else?
Great. Good question. Before that, I want to tell you how I became a philanthropist. See, I'm a secular Jew from Israel, and what secular Jews from Israel are known for, they're not philanthropists. We did not grow in the diaspora to be philanthropists. We were not even used to that we're supposed to give 10%. In Israel, we believe that the government should take care of all the needy. But I think I was very lucky to partner since 1983 with David Hager, who is a modern Orthodox. And I've seen the way he lives, and I see the way he was giving to tzedakah. But David told me something that actually not only resonated with me, but I found it to be true. He said, Adam, it doesn't work like you need to give 10% of whatever your income to philanthropy. It works the opposite. Whatever you give to philanthropy, God finds ways to give you 10 times more. So if you give $10, you get $100 from God somehow. Success in business, not everything is monetary. Now, it's easy to say. The question is, does it stand the test of reality? He said it. But what was amazing is that actually he was able to substantiate for me how it was happening. We have made tzedakah to organizations. Suddenly, an asset that we had just jumped, the value jumped by 10 times the money that we gave. It was a lot of examples that it actually works. And when you know that it works, you clearly want to be a philanthropist because it's good for life, it's good for business, it's good for satisfaction. So I started becoming a philanthropist, and then the only thing I needed to do is basically decide, based on your question, is who do I give to? In the beginning, it was I gave anyone. And every year I added another 5 or 10 organizations I would give money to. All the Jewish organizations that, on a national level, I was a supporter. But it enabled me to really learn the strengths and the weakness of each one, what they specialize in. Are they willing to work with other organizations? Are they willing to think outside of the box? Or they're really have their way or no way? And once I understand that my vision is to fight the enemies of the Jewish people, the enemies of Israel, the enemies of the American people, I've started selecting organizations that not only were willing to go on the offense, not only willing to work for those principles, but also willing to work with each other. It was very important for me to work with organizations that willing to work with others, share information, create synergy and force multiplication, because there is no silver bullet. There's no one organization that can solve our problems. And if we just want to give our money to organization and sleep well at night, it's not going to do anything. We need to make sure that our philanthropy dollars is making the biggest impact. And that you do by supporting many organizations that are part of a big network that's willing to work together and make a big impact.
That's a great word, a force multiplier, right? To be able to create right, just like in investing, you leverage, right? You use leverage and try to get the greatest possible return. Similarly, I'm hearing that from a lot of the philanthropists that I've had the honor to speak with, that it's viewed in a sense from a business perspective, and it's viewed in the sense to create this impact and to assess and to always kind of also to kind of like rebalance a portfolio, or kind of get rid of the things that are dead weight or not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and so on and so forth. So I think that definitely is a pattern that I'm hearing a lot of, which makes a lot of sense. I'm gonna posit, I'm gonna suggest that what Adam, what you suggested, that maybe I was asked the best advice you ever got. I'm gonna maybe suggest the best advice you ever got was the advice you just shared, that being a charitable giver and being a philanthropist benefits the giver almost more than it benefits the receiver, and that's something that's rooted in the Torah. That's something that's very much rooted in our sources, and also God basically tells us we can test him, we can challenge him, that this is an area where he's gonna step up and he'll show us, which it sounds like you've had that amazing experience. What's the worst advice you've ever received in your life? Do you have any advice? We all get advice sometimes of kind of like, that was a mistake, I should have never listened to that person, or this guy doesn't know what they're talking about. Any really bad advice you've ever received?
I think the people that just tell you don't do it. I remember that when I came here to the state and I started playing basketball, I maybe was at the age of 30, and I developed
how tall are you? I can't see. How tall are you?
I'm 6 feet.
Okay, all right. So you're a point guard. You're a guard, probably a guard. No.
Oh, it's a pickup game. I didn't play professionally, so it doesn't matter. But you play, you develop some knee pain. I went to an orthopedic doctor and I said, "Listen, doctor, my knee is painful." And his advice was, "Don't do it. Don't play. Why play?" So this kind of advice, when I want to do something to make an impact and people tell me, "Why bother? Don't do it. You're taking risks. Just don't do anything." This is the kind of advice I don't like, because I want to make an impact. I'm willing to take the risk that most Jews are not willing to take. I'm willing to stand up, fight back, make an impact. Unfortunately, there are not too many people that are willing to join me. And I don't like when people advise me not to do anything. For example, I'll give you, 10 years ago, when I started talking to the Jewish community about the rise of antisemitism, they call me an alarmist. They say, "Adam, because you talk about antisemitism is here. If you shut your mouth, there won't be anti-Semitism here. You just talk about it and talk about BDS, and it's all your fault. So shut up." So this kind of advice to ignore what's happening because those individuals did not have the guts to do anything is counterproductive, especially for me. I want to be active. I want to make an impact. I want to leave a legacy, and I want to make a difference.
I think that's a great message. Any just final thoughts, or we're starting early 2021. Any hopes for the future? Any just final words of wisdom you want to leave our audience with?
Well, I have over the last 15 years, I've developed many methods to fight anti-Semitism. But it's very clear to me today that as long as we and everybody else define anti-Semitism as a Jewish problem, we will not be able to fight against it. I wrote an article perhaps 6 months ago, and I called it "Defining Antisemitism as a Jewish Problem is a Lose-Lose Proposition." I said, we, the Jews, are not capable of doing anything about it. Look at our 2000 history. Look at the Holocaust. Look at what's happening in America. We are the last one to take things into our hands and fight back. We are so good in complaining and documenting and advocating, but we don't fight back. And the Gentiles, everybody else in America, if they think it's a Jewish problem, they don't want to do anything about it. We don't deserve to be held by anyone. We are the scapegoat of everybody, so nobody want to fight for us. So I came to the conclusion that we need to define anti-Semitism as an American problem. And it's not to come to America and say, "Hey, America, this is an American problem." No, don't define it as anti-Semitism. Define it as racism, hatred, bigotry. Those are the challenges to America. This is the challenges to our way of life in America, to our freedom of speech, to our American principles. So today I'm expanding my horizon to work with many American organizations to make America stronger again, take the experience that I had fighting anti-Semitism and using the same methodology and the same techniques and the same project that I've built in order to fight for America, make America stronger, united again. In fact, just today, an article that I wrote was just published in Newsweek. I didn't even read it, but the headline of the article is saying, listen, whether you voted for Trump, whether you voted for Biden, this is a time for us to work together and fight radicalization in the United States, because the radical will destroy America. And we, the people in the center, need to unite, work together for a stronger and better America.
That's on the right and on the left. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. Radicalization is not the privilege, or it doesn't belong to one side of the aisle or the other. It's something that we've unfortunately experienced on both sides. And I hope that your message is heard and that we start to see some healing in this country, which is desperately needed. And Adam, I want to thank you so much for what you do for the Jewish community. I want to thank you for your time. And it was a pleasure having you as a guest on the JPP. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi. Be well.
Okay. So, Adam, it's interesting. Like, I'm an Orthodox Jew. I'm an observant Jew, and I noticed that although certainly my peers and my contemporaries are concerned about anti-Semitism, but it's certainly not kind of like something that we're actively engaged in or where we're actively fighting. And maybe we don't know how, maybe we don't know what the avenues are. I'm curious, as somebody who's so engaged with the fight against anti-Semitism, what would your message be for the Orthodox community? How could they become more engaged in this very important fight?
Thanks. So, I've been fighting anti-Semitism for the last 15 years, and I found that overall the Jewish community appetite for fighting back is very weak. As Jews, we don't want to take any risk. We want to do things underneath the radar. We have too much to lose. We always have too much to lose. It's not just Orthodox Jews. It's all kind of Jews. But I do expect more from Orthodox Jews because they understand the danger of anti-Semitism. They are, on the average, they're bigger philanthropists than other Jews, and they give money to the state of Israel and a lot of good causes that pay for advocacy and documentation and what they think is fighting back. But I was disappointed not to see more Orthodox Jews that are actually willing to fight back and put money in fighting back, not just in passive methods. And I can tell you that I had many conversations with Orthodox Jews, and the reason they gave me why they don't want to give money to this project that I was supporting to fight back, I think the first one, they said, well, Yadua she'esav soneh leYaakov. So out of whatever you do, you're not going to make any. You cannot defeat anti-Semitism. So why waste your time? Let's try to mitigate our damages. Let's try to live in security. But there's no point to fight a fight that we are doomed to lose. That was one of the explanations. Another one was, listen, there's many priorities. Education, our temple, our school are more important than really fighting against our enemies. So priority, it's not in the top priority, especially maybe because they feel it's not going to be successful. They also say, listen, Adam, the best thing to do is to invest in the state of Israel, because if push comes to shove, we can leave and go to Israel. They don't understand that if America falls, Israel is going to fall as well. If the only democratic country in the world, the biggest democratic country in the world, America, which is a good friend of Israel, then I don't think the prospect of Israel are so good. But they believe that investing in Israel is better than investing in fighting anti-Semitism. Clearly, like many other people, they have too much to lose. They have very successful businesses. If anybody knows that they are fighting back, they can have a lashback. I think today is even more clear with the cancel culture and cancel people and cancel movement that anyone that said the wrong thing or did the wrong thing is going to be subject to consequences. So they have seen it. They've seen it in their life that if they do something and stay above the radar, there will be consequences, and they have too much to lose. So all that is great. I understand the reason they have, but I think if we do not fight against the enemies of the Jews, if we do not fight for the enemy against the enemies of America, we're not going to have too much left over.
I hear that. It sounds like it's really it's a question of survival, and all the other things are really built on that reality. And if there's no survival, then you can kiss goodbye all the other things that we so enjoy. So that's a very important point. Just the last, is there some, I'm not, this is not my area so much. Like what organization should we be investing in or focused on? Who's really fighting? Who is in the forefront of fighting this battle?
I have I have a model that I'm basically promoting, a model of philanthropy. I wrote articles about it, and it's different. It's not one organization, it's network of organization. And in this network of organization that I empower, and I ask other philanthropists to empower, we have different kind of organization. We have organization that do research, check who is the enemy, who's funding the enemy, what's the motives and the direction of the enemy, what's they doing today, what's they doing tomorrow, who's working with whom. So who is the enemy? We're investing a lot of research to understand the enemy. Israel is a secure place because Israel is a superpower when it comes to intelligence. We can prevent attacks because we know who are the attackers and when they're going to attack and now they're going to attack. I don't think that too many people invest in this kind of intelligence. So research and intelligence is part of this network. Now, once you have actionable intelligence, you need to share it with other organizations in the network so they can do whatever they do best. So you share it with the media. The media can expand, the media can do its own independence investigation and publish stories about direction and movements and motives. We share it with think tanks who can actually create a narrative, a vision that can be shared with policymakers, can be with lawmakers, can have panels, educate the public. You share it with legal organizations that if they know who is behind certain things, what's legal and illegal about what is being done, they can take legal action. They can appeal to the government offices to take action against people that use illegal methods. So legal is important. And in addition to legal, think tanks and media, we also share the information with many organizations on the ground, that educate people, that reach people and advocate and do things. In general, the organization I work with, as I previously said, organization that's willing to go on the offense, touch subjects that are not necessarily popular, take the risk of actually discussing issues that are controversial for some people, and willing to do things that other organizations are not willing to do. So it's offense, it's out of the box, and willingness to work together.
It's like a Jewish NSA, right? It's almost like it's interesting. Ann Neuberger, who's actually an Orthodox woman, actually was just appointed to a prominent role to head up a new position as head of cybersecurity on the NSA. But I'm joking around. But in all seriousness, it's like kind of like our own underground kind of security network. So it sounds fascinating. And kol kavod with that work and all that you do. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you, Rabbi.